Daniel.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the Vancast.
Yeah, good to be on here, man. Thank you for having me.
All the way from Ben Lomond, you and me, huh?
That's right, Ben Lomond, California. You want me to move this a little closer?
Oh, yeah. Feel free to position that however is comfortable. You can bring it closer.
Podcast
High,
etiquette
low.
here. There we go.
I feel self-conscious because you're probably the audio expert, being a musician and all.
I'd say maybe more on the music side, but audio, honestly, that's something that is I feel like it's kind of a whole other thing. Like the sound guys at our shows, like they're a different breed. They kind of know, every mic, every mixing board, all that stuff. So I'm kind of trying to learn as I go with that stuff. But you probably know a lot more about this than I do, honestly.
A little bit. The microphones, it's the Joe Rogan microphone. Everybody wants the mic. Turns out it was the best one, but now I know a little bit.
Good.
Out here in Fresno. Is that where we are?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because we've been trying to do this a couple of times.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we're doing it.
Glad we finally made it happen, man. Definitely.
The last time that we tried to set this up, I was driving to the spot to do it the next day. Yep. And I pulled over to the gas station and I was FaceTiming this girl that I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, I'm starting to feel a little sick. And she's like, take a COVID test. Like, we'll do it on FaceTime.
Right.
And I do it and I look and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I got COVID.
Oh.
So I was sitting right here when I found out. That was a long time ago. Don't worry, everybody. But
yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you, man. I know COVID's no fun, man. So I'm glad you're feeling better and, it takes a while to get over, but.
Yeah. Yeah, with you touring and stuff, like when COVID hit and all that, was that tough? Because I'm sure shows ended for a while, right?
Yeah, definitely. Over 2020, we moved out from Ben Lomond to the Austin, Texas area it was October of 2019. And we moved out, kind of right before COVID in that 6-month window before everything kicked off. And so we moved out to Texas to be, closer to kind of the center of the United States for touring as far as like getting up to the Midwest, South, East Coast, and West Coast, and Texas, being able to do all that. And so we did a little bit of touring then, and we had a really busy touring schedule in 2020. We were releasing a record, Rolling On, during that time, and we were out on the road with a guy named Jason Boland, and we were doing a whole big run of shows supporting him when we were in Colorado. And we had heard kind of murmurings of like this COVID, this new coronavirus thing that was coming out. And we were all kind of joking. Everybody was just kind of like, oh, yeah, it's just like another bird flu or whatever. And nobody really knew what the deal was. And we were loading into this venue in Rifle, Colorado, and sure enough, they told us, hey, show's canceled. All shows in the state of Colorado are canceled. And that was kind of the beginning of that era for us, and then all of our touring plans for the most part in 2020 were canceled. We just did a lot of, Texas stuff later in the year in 2020. But yeah, that was a wild time, man.
It was.
It really was.
I had plans get canceled, but nothing that like my job. Well, I was supposed to start a job that year and then it ended up not happening. So it was a whole summer where I felt like I was in middle school again where I wasn't working. And yeah, that was a weird year. Yeah. But glad it's, finally a little bit past us. You're able to get out there, tour around, do some music. You're crushing it out here in the country game.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
And for people who don't know, we're from the same town.
Yeah.
Little small town, Ben Lomond, California, in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
That's right.
I feel sad sometimes when people don't have like hometown pride. I feel like I love where we're from. I don't know.
Yeah, same here. I honestly do, man. I think that especially like the time that we got to grow up there, I feel like it was kind of, we were the same grade, weren't we?
What year did you graduate high school?
2010.
Oh, I'm 11.
Oh, okay.
Just missed.
Okay, yeah. So I'm 1 year older. I didn't even know that. But I feel like we both kind of grew up at a time before everybody was kind of glued to phones, when we were kids, and so I was always in the river, always at the creek, kind of enjoying like everything that area that we grew up in had to offer. And it had that really small town sense of community, and I think that's something that still exists there, definitely, but it's just, I feel like we caught kind of this last golden era of that,
That's true. Yeah.
But I don't know. I haven't really been, I lived up there until 2019. And have you been back recently?
Yeah, I live just over there near San Jose. So my parents are still in Ben Lomond.
Okay.
I'm there maybe once every other month.
Yeah. I love it. Boulder Creek, Ben Lomond, Felton. I feel like, Santa Cruz is changing. It's always growing and whatnot, but that area is kind of maintained, stayed the same. So I hope it does.
Absolutely. It does feel like timeless in a way, A lot of things aren't updated yet. And I mean, our high school is right on the edge of a huge redwood forest, state park. Not a lot of people get to do PE in a place like that.
No, get to go on runs up in the Fall Creek Trail, was it?
That's my favorite place I've ever run in my life. And I've run a lot of places. Fall Creek, amazing.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah. So what got you into music? You were doing music back in the day, right?
Yeah. So I, in the beginning, as a kid growing up, I got into music through my dad, really. Both my mom and my dad were both, big music fans. I always listened to bands like the Eagles with my dad. He's a huge Eagles fan, Joe Walsh, guys like that. Creedence Clearwater Revival, like bands that you turn on classic rock radio and that's what would be on. Or K-Pig radio, like we had. And so I feel like within that music, there was kind of a crossover to, country rock stuff. There was a lot of those things that kind of teetered on both sides of that. And, growing up where we did, there was also a lot of people into country music, So I feel like when I got into high school, that's kind of when I got my introduction to country music, not just what was on the radio, but like other stuff, older stuff. And that's kind of how I got into country, was just, being introduced through friends. But my dad, ultimately, he's the one. He played in bands. I grew up watching him play at little dive bars and events and stuff. He played in a classic rock cover band called Radio Flyer, and they would play all over the place, but he played in that band. He played in a country band, and so I kind of just got to grow up watching him do that, and I was always like, man, I really want to do that when I grow up. That's where I want to be on stage,
Man, there's nothing like country music, and I'm not a musician myself, so I always get lost trying to talk about the way music progresses, and there's different styles, and rock is, related in a lot of ways to country music, and I can't really express. It's just more like I know what I like, and
sure.
Back home driving around in my dad's truck, this old beat up pickup truck, and the only cassette that he had in there was Merle Haggard's Greatest Hits.
Oh yeah.
And to this day, Rainbow Stew. Rainbow Stew is my favorite song ever.
That is such a great one, man. We were just listening to that. We probably listen to Rainbow Stew like once every 2 days, in the van. It just gets cycled through.
Yeah.
And we're big Merle Haggard fans for sure. So,
I love that.
Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, it was always my dream to see him. I'm like, I'm gonna take my dad to see Merle. Rest in peace, but a legend right there.
That was my dream too. Me and my brother really wanted to see Merle right before he passed, and we kind of passed up the opportunity. And we were like, we'll get to see him again sometime soon, and that was the last time I think that we would have been able to. So
his son Ben sounds like him, a lot like him in a lot of ways.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ben.
Yeah.
And his other son Noel Haggard, and those genes, man, are just crazy. You know, he sounds just like his dad, Ben, does.
Country music for you wasn't always the thing, was it?
No. I started out playing, more just rock and roll stuff when I was younger. I used to sit in with my dad's band a little bit and play that stuff, and then got into punk rock, just because that was what a lot of people at that time were into, in the 90s and early 2000s. That was, there's a big resurgence of kind of punk rock music. And I was into that music, got into the drums. That was my first instrument, actually. I was a drummer. And so just found local kids to play music with, our buddy Henry Chadwick. I drummed in his band and in My Stupid Brother for years. Drummed in another band, a bunch of local bands in Santa Cruz. And, that was kind of my first taste of touring, was touring with bands like that, just even regionally, going up to Sacramento for a run of shows, down to LA. And that's kind of when I knew, I was like, I really want to do this for a living. I want to be on the road and make music for a living. Yeah,
shout out Henry Chadwick. I think he was on the Vancast around episode 5, I want to say. And I remember seeing you guys play together out in Santa Cruz a few years back, singing. I saw you playing drums, doing all of it.
Yeah.
I feel like I've heard you say drumming was kind of your first thing. Is that correct?
It was, yeah. Yeah, drumming was my first instrument. I always kind of played guitar growing up, but drums was kind of my way of doing something different from what my dad did. You know, I wanted to have my own thing, and playing drums was a good outlet too for me for any aggression or anger or whatever, you know, kind of teen angst that I had. And so, you know, you just get on there and beat the hell out of them, and that was kind of your outlet, you know. So I gravitated towards the drums and did that for a lot of years before I ever started writing, you know, country music.
If I ever play something, that's like what I would want to do.
Oh, it's probably the most fun.
Yeah.
Honestly, I love it. I still love it.
I don't have the finger dexterity or something, but my stupid brother, I remember loving my stupid brother right around the time I was in middle school. I had the CD and everything. And
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
So you were drumming with them
Yeah.
around that time?
Yep, I drummed with them from, probably 2000. I'm so bad with the years.
Yeah.
Like, as we're getting older, I'm trying to try to remember stuff, and I'm like, man, when was that? You know,
Yeah.
but I know that I drummed with them probably from about, I think, 8th grade, maybe even freshman year, upwards to, like, you know, sophomore, junior year, something like that. I think it was a few years I played with them. Henry, I'm sorry if it was longer. I forget, but trying to remember it. But had a lot of good times with those guys, man. I love the Chadwick family. They're just good people.
So your progression then into country music, was it just, did you step away from music for a time and then get into country? Like, what made you want to switch from a certain genre, punk rock, to what you're doing now?
You know, I got over the years, you know, my late teens and early 20s, I got really into drugs. I got you know, first into partying, just with drinking and doing stuff like that. I got after that, you know, and through that, into harder and harder drugs, and kind of lost my way as far as that goes. And really, I ended up pawning all my drums, you know, and was kind of just in this endless cycle of addiction, just ending up in rehab programs. I'd go to jail, you know, and miss shows. There was a local band I played with, and we had this opportunity to play a great, the Redwood Mountain Fair.
Oh, yeah.
Great local festival. And they were very excited about it. I had to call them from jail and tell them that I wasn't able to make it. You know, there's a lot of times like that, that's just where that took me. And, you know, without getting too, I could write a book about like all those years and everything, but it was a long time of just struggling with that stuff, and a lot of turmoil. And then toward the end of that, you know, I had kind of returned to country music as it's almost this form of refuge. You know, there's this type of music that it's not as outwardly, you know, aggressive and angry as like punk rock is, but it was similar to me in the way that it had kind of a raw emotion to it. You know, it was a very emotional type of music, and it was a way that I could kind of channel what I was going through into songs, or even just by listening to songs, you know, and be like, I can relate to that. And that really got me through a lot of those hard times. And so when I decided to finally get sober, it was kind of country, you know, country music was a big part of that decision for me, you know, in wanting to pursue a life in making music and do something positive, you know, put out a type of music that is positive, that's might be singing about those hard times, but it's not glorifying them. You know what I mean? Kind of a more of a constructive type of way to get it out there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You're probably sharing your story. You're able to express how you feel and probably share that with others who may need to hear about that too.
Exactly.
Was there a moment, I know country music played a big part in that. Is there a moment or a feeling that really causes you to question if, you know, a certain lifestyle is worth, you know, living out continuously? Is it, you know, missing shows making you think about it, or, you know, something else that makes you pause and say, I don't know that I want to continue this?
There's too many to even count. I mean, my life was kind of just one big moment of questioning everything, you know. I was just kind of in misery all the time, and in and out, off and on, being homeless, living out of my truck. And it was just awful, and I think that I got so beat down from it that I had so many of those moments and those times. And I had so many, there's been so many people who have kind of helped me along that journey, even just by, telling me a little piece of advice that kind of stuck in my head. And so shout out to all those people who over the years helped me in any way. But they all those things kind of compounded, and built up. And even though I didn't take their advice right away, it kind of built up, and over the years, put those things into practice. And eventually it just made the most sense. I was like, you know what, I'm going to die if I keep doing this. And this is kind of, this is the best decision for me. Ultimately, too, the best thing that ever happened to me was meeting my fiance, Jody. She was a big catalyst in getting me to change my life. She never gave me like a hardcore ultimatum, but I knew what I had, and I knew that if I continued doing what I was doing, I was going to lose her. And so that was kind of the final deciding factor, for me.
Well, that's amazing. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you
on that.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Congratulations on all of that success as well.
Thanks a lot.
Because, there's people who do make a change, but like what you're doing is you've made a change and now leading by example.
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten a chance to talk with people who have, been inspired by a song you wrote, or just even hearing your story that encouraged them to make positive change too?
Absolutely, man. There's been so many people. Like I get DMs, on Instagram all the time of people that have told me their songs have helped them get sober. People have told me that at shows in person. And people have, one guy was telling me he was going to get some lyrics from a song tattooed because it helped him. And that stuff blows my mind. That's like, I can't even believe that has helped people in that way. And that's kind of all that I could, honestly, all as far as a mission goes in my music, that's all I could ask for really, is like try to help people out in that way, and helping people to not suffer like I did, or if they have, to get out of it, So that's kind of a big mission statement for me,
Well, if you like what you're doing and it's having that kind of response, you got to be doing something right. Absolutely. What's that like when you get those DMs and stuff and people getting tattoos? I think even Henry Chadwick, I think he said he was playing with you somewhere, and he said it was just mind-boggling to hear someone in another town singing along to a song that you wrote.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. That blows my mind still, to go places and have people sing. And it's incredible, man. It feels like the hard work that you're putting in is paying off, and like you're connecting with people. So there's, as a songwriter too, there's no feeling like that, to have people singing back those words that you wrote alone in your bedroom or wherever you wrote them. It's like, it gives it this life that it never would have had, otherwise.
So not only do you have an immense talent for performing, the lyrics, the songs, they're really great. What is your
Thank you.
process for coming up with music?
It's kind of, it varies. It really does. Sometimes I'll be more disciplined with it, and I'll sit down and I'll have times where I write. And then other times I'll have just inspiration come and sit down and write down a whole song, right then. That's happened to me recently, but it's kind of all over the place. Like, it's very hard when we're out on the road for me to write. For some reason, I'm so distracted with just the day-to-day of, you get to the hotel, you check in, shower, go to the show, load in, eat dinner, play the show, get back by 2 a.m., and then do it all over again day in, day out. You're kind of in this grind where it's hard to be creative. But then when I get home, I feel like there's this flood of creativity that comes just from those experiences, and people that you meet on the road and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit all over the place for me as far as like when I get to do that, but definitely gather experience just from like life, living life, driving around, meeting people.
One of my favorite ones, actually, from a life experience we talked about, living in the San Lorenzo Valley.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great song.
Oh,
Son of the San Lorenzo.
I appreciate it.
When I listen to that, like, it really does connect with, a shared experience. But even people who aren't from there are probably like, Oh, like my hometown. They connect with the lyrics and
Sure.
stuff.
Kind of a longing for home type of
Yeah.
thing people could relate to, for sure.
Touring is a grind, I can imagine.
Oh, definitely, man. It is. It is. I love doing it. You know, don't mean to sound like, jaded on it. I love doing it. And I was just talking with our tour manager, Tyler, about this the other day, that sometimes I feel like we've been doing it for like 10, 20 years or something, and then in actuality, I've only really been touring, since 2018. And 2020, we didn't do a whole lot. So really, it's been a handful of years that we've been doing this hardcore, where there's other guys who have been at this for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're still going strong. So it kind of, on one hand, you're like, oh, man, there's a long way to go. But that fires me up because it gets you. I love a challenge. I love that type of stuff. And it's just hard to explain. It's something I love doing as hard as it is. You know what I mean?
I had a very small glimpse into the tour life one time.
Really?
I might have talked about it on here before, but I did a week or so touring with G-Eazy. Do you know the hip hop artist from Oakland?
Yeah.
I snuck a camera into a venue in San Francisco. His drummer saw it. A week later, I ended up out on the East Coast.
Nope.
Yeah. Those days where you're, loading in, doing all this stuff, I was the video guy, so I'm not even performing, but those days feel like a whole year, right?
Well, especially for crew like that, doing photos and stuff, and video. Like, I know how hard people work, doing that stuff. You're just running around, walking around that whole venue all day long, getting stuff.
Yeah, so it was the East Coast, and I remember, like, by the third night, I'm like in the green room, just like hearing the concert out there, and it's like the audience is, first night, that's their night out, and I'm like, this is my whatever day in a row, and I'm like, I'm just gonna edit photos because it's like exhausting. Imagine for you, you might be tired, but how do you get that energy to like put on a show for that person coming out here after a long day's work when that's their one night out for the week, but it's your 10th day in a row going?
No, and that's a great way to put it. Like, that's kind of what gets me fired up, is thinking about those people that it's like, this is their night that they've set aside. They paid money for that ticket to come out, and a lot of them come out, they sing the words of the songs. They're, buying merchandise, like they're supporting us like in a genuine way. And that is a big thing that fires me up, knowing that there's people out there that are there to see us, It's one thing if you're playing like a dive bar or something like I used to do, like where it was just kind of whoever was there is there. But I've been really lucky these days with having like more and more people showing up to the shows and caring about it. And that kind of just keeps me going. It keeps me fired up knowing that that those people are there for us. And whether it's 5 people or it's 500 people, it's, that's why we're there,
Yeah, you're the man. People are coming to see you. And I'm sure that happens more and more and more. I experienced that when I was interviewing a guy on my show who mentioned you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm out there,
Dusty.
out there at the Netflix is a Joke Festival in Los Angeles, talking with comedian Dusty Slay. Country music comes up. Who are you listening to these days? He says, a guy by the name of Jesse Daniel. Blew my mind.
That's crazy. I know. It blew my mind too, man. I was very happy to hear that because I've been a fan of his for a while, so it's pretty cool.
What are the odds? Not to belittle your talent at all, but what are the odds, just all things lined up, and he's from, Tennessee, talking on a podcast in Los Angeles, and
we grew up in the same town, went to the same high school, and you're interviewing him, and that's what he says. I thought the whole thing was pretty, what's the word, like serendipitous, it was pretty crazy.
We got to give a shout out to Dusty Slay.
Oh, yeah.
People go listen to Dusty Slay too. His comedy's great.
We're having a good time.
I feel like a lot of country artists like Dusty Slay.
Yeah, I think so too, man. And I think it's because, for one, there's just something real about him. You know what I mean? Like he just kind of has this energy, not in a bad way, but that he just kind of like doesn't really. He's not like putting on any airs. He's like, I am what I am, and that's country. I think people love that. I liked him before even hearing his comedy, just because he had Merle Haggard as his walkout music.
Oh,
or it was
on Netflix, remember. Right?
Yeah, on Netflix, or maybe it was
Working Man Blues.
Working Man Blues. Yeah,
yes.
Exactly. I was watching it with Jody, and she just threw it on as we were, eating dinner or something like that, and we heard Merle come on and we were like, hey, what is this? And started watching. And then his comedy also is geared toward those country fans. I feel like, he has jokes about trailer parks and his experience in growing up, and he just gets it, So
Yeah, there's something totally to be said about finding success when you are trying to find success and kind of trying to be someone you think people will like, or you playing something that you think a certain crowd will like. But if you're just authentically yourself, doing what you like to do, you're going to attract people who like what you're doing. You're going to find that success.
Totally, yeah. Jody, my fiance, she always says, art is transparent. And I believe that, like if you're putting your heart in it and you love what you do and you've lived it and you're just putting it out there, I think people are able to, it just has a different vibe to it. I hate to use that word, but it has a different feel to it, and people can kind of pick up on that, and it attracts people to that art, and I think that's the truth with Dusty's stuff. It's just authentically him,
Yeah. So what are your upcoming projects? You're touring right now. When do you even find the time to write? When do you get that breather?
We are finishing up the West Coast right now, and we'll be out for about another week. I think we've got 5 more shows on the West Coast, and then we're going to be headed to we got 1 week off back home in Texas where we live, and then we're going to be headed up to the Midwest and Nashville. We're doing Americana Fest, which is cool. I've wanted to do that for a long time. And there's a band called American Aquarium. They're taking me out on tour, and I'm just going to do that as a duo. So me on, just singing an acoustic guitar, and then my steel player are just going to go out on the road and open up a bunch of shows for American Aquarium out in the Midwest, and that's coming up. And we'll be doing that pretty much all of September and some of October. And then we've got Richmond Folk Fest in Richmond, Virginia, that we're going to be going out and doing some kind of like East Coast and Southeast dates in October. And then it's time for a little break after that. It's been a busy year for sure.
Well, that's good though, right?
Oh, yeah.
Crisscrossing all over the United States.
Yeah. I'm very thankful we've been able to do that, man. It's been awesome.
That sounds exhausting. Again, not to go back to it, but that tour life, right? It's I'm sure there's pros and cons.
Yeah, definitely. And there's things you learn how to do better, that you maybe didn't. Maybe don't eat Taco Bell every day. Maybe, try to take care of yourself. Like over the years, there's just stuff that we've kind of picked up that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
So we just try to do our best and be pros, and that's it.
I was just talking to a guy I connected with on Instagram. I'm a big hat guy, so I'm always wearing a hat. And this company actually, well, I'm balding. You probably got good hair.
I got some hair, but I just feel like I got, not to change the topic too much. I've got kind of a rounder head. I feel like when you put on a hat that has a little bit taller of a profile, it gives it a little bit of a more elongated look. That's the beauty of hats, man. It changes your whole look.
I got a cowboy hat. It's over there actually a couple months ago. And
I see it.
I was like, I kind of feel like a poser. I'm not out there roping cattle or anything. I love the look myself, but I'm not out there doing the ranch life. Like the girl at the boot barn was like, just don't call yourself a cowboy and you're good.
Yeah, that's it. Man, that's funny you say that, because I think I've ran into that so much, and I think a lot of people get hung up. I found myself in the past getting hung up, and I've done ranch work. I've never been a cowboy. Like, I've never been riding and roping or anything like that. But I worked at a buddy's ranch out in Aromas. I worked at another ranch in Corralitos. Like, I did a little bit of that work, but even still, I'd think that same thought and be like, where do people draw the line between what somebody would call like a poser? And I think there's always going to be elitists in every thing, but man, was Alan Jackson ever out there roping cattle? Like, no, he never was. I mean, there's some guys that were, but I think it's just become part of that culture.
Yeah.
So some elitists, I'm sure, would not agree with me, and it is part of Western culture, but I think it's become more than that. And
for sure,
it's a hat.
Do what you want, wear what you want.
Exactly.
Moral of the story.
That's it.
There's a song I like by Flatland Cavalry. Country is.
Yeah, what country means to you, man. I love that song.
I don't own a horse or wear a Stetson.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's country's for everybody. You don't even have to work on a ranch like me.
Yep, exactly, man. They're Flatland, man. Speaking of good bands, they're a great one.
Yeah, who are some of your influences or people that you connect with on this kind of stuff out in Texas or across the country? I'm sure you meet tons of talented people out there.
Yeah, man. Flatland Cavalry, they're a great band. We got to do. I think we've only done one show with them, but we did a show at Floors in Helotes, Texas. It's a really cool venue. We got to open for them there, and they're just like the sweetest people, man. Super cool, down to earth, super great show. Another favorite of mine is Mike and the Moon Pies.
I love them.
Yeah, they're buddies of ours. You know, got to know them a little bit. Yeah, we got to do a really fun show. It was their first time selling out Green Hall in New Braunfels. If you ever get out that way, man, go see a show at Green Hall. It's a super cool, really cool venue.
Amazing.
Bands like them, Flatland, Mike and the Moon Pies, that have taken us out, you know, and had us on shows. And me being this guy from California who's 3 years ago moved to Texas, they've kind of shared those crowds and, you know, told their fans like, hey, give it up for Jesse Daniel. That's some good country music out there. And then those fans hear that and they want to go check us out because Mike and the Moon Pies said it's cool to do, you know, and they're like, they kind of co-sign that. And I think that's a really cool thing of those guys to do in bands like that. So shout out to both of those bands, Flatland and Mike and the Moon Pies, great people. Insane live show too.
Really?
Very, very energetic. Omar, their bass player, he's like, he brings the energy of like a metal show, you know.
Wow.
He just gets so into it and gets people so fired up.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're one of my favorites to watch.
Are they out in Texas too?
Yeah, they're from, I believe a lot of them are from kind of South Texas, but they're all based out of Austin. You know, they have been for years, I think, Austin. Pretty sure.
I recently connected with a guy out in Texas. His name's Grady Coleman, and he started this company actually out yonder.
Oh, cool.
And he started this company basically talking about, you know, wherever you are out there, just like, you know, being authentically yourself, you know, wherever that road takes you. So that's what made me think of it too. He's also buddies with a guy who plays music out there in Texas. Have you heard of Palmer Anthony?
I have heard the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I
good.
ever listened to his music though.
Yeah, he's good. Check him out. But there's just something about, we talked about this already, but being yourself and then giving it all you've got. So
oh yeah,
got to give a shout out to Out Yonder.
Oh yeah. Yeah, man, that's it.
Yeah.
Being true to yourself more than anything else. I think that's it. That's like what I've tried. We've all been there in life where we try to do something, try to try on a different thing that maybe is not you or this or that. But it's funny moving, like I was talking about California, being from California in Texas playing country music or really any other part of the country. People love to, one comment that I get a lot is, man, how'd you get into country music from California? You know, and people don't realize that the majority of the state is pretty rural and tons of farming, tons of ranching, and there's a lot of country fans here. And so I feel like it's kind of one of my missions in music is to kind of spread the word and not try to, you know, hide the fact that I'm from California. Try to have some pride in it, like you mentioned earlier, like the hometown pride, and kind of carry that in an authentic but non-arrogant type of way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just kind of spreading the word and carrying that torch.
Yeah, absolutely. It was always my impression like, oh, there's not a lot of country fans out in California or something like that. But I'm learning more and more there is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even Felton Music Hall is bringing a lot of country artists through.
Definitely.
A lot of places. I mean, you got Shoreline Amphitheater, of course, bringing people through in the summer. But I feel like I'm seeing more and more as I pay attention. But
yeah, exactly. I always try to remind people that's, you know, Merle Haggard's from California, Buck Owens.
Yeah, Bakersfield.
You know, yeah, Bakersfield. Yeah. You know, so many others. But yeah, people just forget, you know, about those things. I'm trying to make them remember.
Yeah. What has been your favorite place in the country of all the places you played to put on a show?
Favorite place? Like favorite venue?
Venue,
or like state?
town.
Okay.
Wherever you had the most fun.
I'd probably say, you're kind of a, you know, biased answer because it's the hometown. I got to say the Catalyst show that we did was electric, man. It was absolutely incredible. It was sold out. You've been at packed Catalyst shows.
Yeah.
It's just an insane place. And we made a live record out of that show. So we're going to be putting out a live album eventually.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, we got that coming up eventually. I'm not sure when we're going to be doing it, but really looking forward to that. So that kind of sticks out in my mind as like one of those just incredible venues and nights. But I will say states that I didn't know were so cool that I had never been to. Iowa is probably the coolest state that I've been to that I knew nothing about going into it. And beautiful, man. Tons of really cool nature stuff to do. I got to do some fishing with a buddy of mine, Mike. Shout out to Mike from Hippies and Cowboys. Do you ever listen to their podcast?
No, I never heard of it.
Okay, well, I'll get you on that.
Okay.
It's some good country music podcast for sure.
Right on. What was the other one you were on? I think with the Seeger guys?
Oh, yeah. That's your story time.
Yeah, that was really fun listen.
Mm-hmm.
So people should check you out there as well.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Got a quick game before you go. Do you want to play a quick game of burning questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Burning questions with Jesse Daniel.
All right, I'm ready.
Some of these are weird. I sort through these sometimes because they're like,
They're all, what the heck?
yeah, have you ever peed the bed?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Who hasn't, man?
Well, I guess you're fine with that question.
We've all been kids, and, I feel like it's always happened to everybody at one point or another.
Question number 1. What is your biggest fear?
Biggest fear. I won't go too deep on this. I can think of some, but I don't like big spiders. Not into them.
You come across any that are in Texas that aren't here?
Yeah, there's a lot of these huge kind of grass spiders that we have there, and they're harmless.
Like that?
Man, some of them get big, and they'll find their way into the house, and sometimes you'll see like a big, dark thing in the middle of the night moving across the wall, and it's one of those big spiders.
Like their body or the whole thing?
I'd say with legs and everything.
That's still like a tarantula.
Yeah, there are tarantulas out there too, for sure. But they get big. Texas has got some big bugs, man. But,
wow.
in where we grew up, the wolf spiders out there. I was never a fan of those either.
Yeah, are those the big brown ones or black? What
Yeah,
are
the
they?
brown ones.
Yeah.
They get pretty fat there.
There was a big black one in my studio the other day, and all I had was a spray. I thought it was a black widow. I don't know. But all I had was like this spray thing of like bleach. I was like, I'm just going to spray it. And I was talking to this girl I'm dating on the phone. I'm like, and she's an interpreter for the state park. So she knows a lot about like nature and bugs and all that.
Sure.
And I'm like, I'm going to spray with bleach. And she's like, good luck. They hold their breath. And I'm like, what?
Oh, that's crazy.
And
I would have never known that.
Kid you not, I was spraying. I'm like, this thing is fine. I saw it the next day.
Oh my God.
Moving around. I'm like, that's crazy.
So I'll try again.
I got last of the burning questions here. How do you wish to be remembered? There's a little bit of a deep one.
Yeah. I hope to be remembered as somebody kind of like we talked about, man. Somebody who lived true to themselves. Somebody who was good to their friends and family, and the people they cared about. And I just want to be remembered as somebody who gave their all to, gave my all to country music and to making that my life, to the things that I care about, I want to be good to the family too. That's a big one. I would always want my nephews or whoever I leave behind to remember me as a good uncle. And, if I were to die tomorrow, that's what I want for sure.
That's great advice for people to follow. You're doing great country music, but you're also a great guy. And I'm so glad we got to do this.
Appreciate it, Nick. Thank you, man.
Ben Lomond to the universe, huh?
That's it.
Cheers to
Only
that.
up from here. You got it.
Yeah, I'll see you out on the road, huh?
Yes, sir. You got it. Appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Feel like I'm at the tippy top of my game.